On November 20, 1943, at 6:23 am, Red Beach 2 on Betio Island in Tarawa Atoll witnessed an unprecedented spectacle of warfare. Explosive eruptions in the sand were perfectly timed and methodically advancing towards hidden enemy positions with mechanical accuracy. From their palm log bunkers, Japanese naval infantry observed a Marine First Lieutenant named William Dean Hawkins maneuvering forward with an unusually large firearm. According to Japanese military doctrine, American troops relied heavily on mass rifle fire while their individual weapons were considered inferior compared to the spiritual prowess of Japanese bayonet charges. However, Lieutenant Hawkins was about to challenge this belief by revealing why 4,500 Japanese defenders would perish within just 3 days on Tarawa. The Browning automatic rifle Bauer, weighing in at 19 pounds without ammunition and capable of firing 30 loose 6 Springfield rounds at varying rates, between 300 to 450 rounds per minute for sustained fire, and up to 500 to 650 rounds per minute on the rapid setting, was an instrument that would soon alter perceptions. Within just 3 seconds, a Bauer operator could empty a 20-round magazine at maximum speed. This capability was about to expose a fatal flaw in Japanese military doctrine. The clash between these opposing forces, a culture venerating spiritual strength and close combat versus an industrial democracy harnessing mechanized killing, would unfold across numerous Pacific islands. The BR wasn't merely a firearm, it symbolized the application of American mass production techniques to infantry warfare. For the Japanese, trained to fight until death rather than retreat, courage alone would prove insufficient against the relentless barrage of automatic firepower delivered with precision and efficiency. Just 20 minutes after Lieutenant Hawkins commenced his assault, his scout sniper platoon had successfully neutralized 3 Japanese strongholds using concentrated BAR fire. The battle for Tarawa began with a demonstration of force that starkly contradicted everything Japanese soldiers had been taught about warfare. Entering the Pacific War, the Imperial Japanese Army's tactical doctrines were rooted in victories against China and Russia. The infantry manual from 1909, still in use by 1943, dedicated 17 pages to spiritual power and bayonet fighting, but only 2 paragraphs to automatic weapons. This emphasis on sashin, or spiritual power, meant that material disadvantages could be overcome through sheer will and bravery. The Bushido Code emphasized that a highly motivated soldier could overcome any adversary through sheer willpower alone, which was not just propaganda but an established element of military doctrine. At Chiba's Army Infantry School, it was taught that 1 Japanese soldier equaled the fighting strength of 3 Chinese or 2 Russian soldiers due to their spiritual superiority, while the Japanese were aware of automatic weapons and had developed their own models such as the Type 96 and Type 99 light machine guns. Production numbers indicated a significant disparity. Approximately 41,000 Type 96 and 53,000 Type 99s were manufactured during the conflict. However, these weapons were distributed sparingly within units, with only 2 or 3 per company, used by specialized crews. The idea of equipping each squad with multiple automatic rifles to form the backbone of infantry tactics was alien to Japanese military thought. This oversight would later prove detrimental as island battles unfolded and American squads were found to possess more firepower than an entire Japanese platoon. The Browning automatic rifle of WWII, produced in vast quantities by the Americans throughout the war, epitomized this disparity. Designed by John Browning in 1917 and refined during the interwar period, the BAR became a standard issue for American infantrymen. It offered firepower previously reserved for dedicated machine gun crews. By November 1943, U.S. factories were manufacturing these weapons at an unprecedented pace, which would have been unimaginable to Japanese planners. The New England Small Arms Corporation alone produced around 168 380 bars during the war, while IBM's, known primarily for business machines, contributed another 20,000 after retooling their facilities. Additional manufacturers like Marlin Rockwell Corporation further boosted total wartime production to approximately 350,000 units. This level of output was incomprehensible to a Japanese military that meticulously crafted each Type 96 machine gun by hand over several weeks. Marine Sergeant John Basilone, who earned the Medal of Honor on Guadalcanal, operated both machine guns and bars throughout his service career. In October 1942, he played a crucial role in defending the Guadalcanal against an assault by around 3,000 Japanese troops using machine gun fire, showcasing the lethal impact of American automatic weapons on Japanese human wave tactics. While technical specifications highlighted features such as firing the powerful 30-06 round at rates up to 60-50 rounds per minute and having an effective range exceeding 1,000 yards, it was the doctrine for the use that truly set them apart. By 1943, every Marine rifle squad included 3 Browning automatic rifles at bars, and Army squads had at least one. This ensured instant access to automatic firepower within small American units without waiting for machine gun teams to deploy. On August 7, 1942, the first major American offensive in the Pacific War commenced at Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands, giving the Japanese their initial taste of what was to come. The Battle of Ilu River on August 21, 1942, exemplified the pattern of combat that would define the Pacific theater. Colonel Kona Ichiki led an attack with precisely 90-17 men during a nighttime assault against Marine positions, expecting hand-to-hand combat where Japanese spiritual superiority would triumph. Instead, they encountered relentless interlocking fields of automatic weapons fire, including bars strategically positioned along the Marine line. Private First Class Albert Schmid, manning one machine gun that night, gained fame for his actions. However, it was the coordinated use of all automatic weapons, particularly the 12 bars in rifle companies, that ultimately repelled the Japanese assault. Each bar operator had been trained to fire 6-round bursts, approximately a second's worth of fire, before shifting position. This tactic left charging Japanese troops facing empty space as they reached muzzle flashes. Only 28 out of Ichiki's original force of 90-17 men survived, illustrating the devastating effectiveness of the American approach. A squad of 13 Japanese soldiers armed with bolt-action Arisaka rifles was capable of firing up to 65 rounds per minute. Conversely, a Marine unit equipped with 3 bars could unleash 150 rounds within the initial 4 seconds of engagement, leaving the Japanese squad unable to reload in time for a second shot. In response to the overwhelming American firepower, the Japanese adopted an underground strategy. By late 1943, they had developed extensive cave systems as a critical element of their defensive architecture. These were not mere holes, but intricate networks with multiple chambers and interconnected tunnels designed to provide overlapping fields of fire. The Japanese military doctrine considered these positions virtually impregnable, necessitating either substantial artillery bombardment or direct infantry assault to overcome them. The introduction of the IR altered this dynamic entirely. On November 22, 1943, during the Battle at Tarawa, Marines faced the first sophisticated Japanese cave defenses and quickly developed a standard procedure for dealing with them. This tactic involved approaching the caves from an indirect angle and placing a bear gunner approximately 25 yards away from the entrance. The gunner would then fire a full magazine into the cave opening in a figure 8 pattern while maintaining continuous suppressive fire. The effectiveness of this technique stemmed from the physics involved. The 30-06 rounds fired by the bear retained little velocity even after multiple ricochets within confined spaces. Consequently, a single burst directed at a cave entrance could saturate the interior with bouncing projectiles, making it nearly impossible for anyone inside to survive. Marines found that firing a 20-round magazine into a cave created what they referred to as a hornet's nest effect, as bullets ricocheted off walls, ceiling, and floor in unpredictable patterns. Soldiers who had been trained to defend these positions to the death were often killed before they could see their enemy. On June 15, 1944, during the Battle of Saipan in the Mariana Islands, Japanese defenders had spent months preparing and refining their defenses based on lessons learned from Tarawa and Quad Line. Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito led approximately 30 Zaza defenders entrenched in what were believed to be impenetrable positions. These troops had meticulously studied U.S. tactics but were unprepared for the overwhelming automatic firepower the Americans would deploy. By the time of the Saipan battle, Marine strategy had evolved to optimize the use of Browning automatic rifles and bars. Each rifle company was restructured around bar teams, with an official ratio of 1 bar for every 4 Marines. Unofficially, however, Marines often acquired extra bars whenever possible, leading some squads to operate with up to 6 bars, effectively turning infantry units into mobile automatic weapons platforms. The Battle of Purple Heart Ridge on Saipan showcased the effectiveness of the BR. Japanese defenders had built mutually supporting positions in coral limestone caves that were thought to be impregnable. Marine Private First Class Harold Ajram, not primarily a bar gunner, was awarded the Medal of Honor for evacuating 45 wounded Marines under heavy fire. His bravery exemplified the kind of heroism that enabled bar teams to hold their ground and continue delivering suppressive fire. The battle statistics from Saipan were staggering. The 2nd Marine Division alone fired 8.7 million rounds of .36 ammunition over 3 weeks, much of it through BARs and machine guns. The Japanese forces, expecting a favorable exchange ratio due to spiritual fortitude and defensive superiority, instead faced an overwhelming numerical disadvantage. American industrial might could produce more bullets than Japan could field soldiers. The impact of the BAR extended beyond physical casualties. Its psychological effect was equally devastating on Japanese military confidence. The distinctive rapid thudding sound of the bar, different from machine guns, indicated the close-range automatic firepower was nearby and mobile. Veterans often described the intense psychological pressure caused by multiple bars firing simultaneously, likening it to a rolling thunder announcing an overwhelming barrage. This psychological impact was further amplified by American fire discipline. Marine training emphasized short, controlled bursts of fire to maximize accuracy and conserve ammunition. Japanese troops anticipated reckless and excessive American gunfire, but instead faced methodical and lethal attacks. Every burst resulted in casualties rather than mere suppression. By mid-1944, captured Japanese documents showed that their soldiers were instructed to target and eliminate BAR gunners, recognizing these weapons as crucial to American small unit tactics. However, pinpointing the bar gunners during combat proved extremely challenging due to their constant movement and the presence of multiple automatic rifles in each Marine squad. On February 19, 1945, in Wimmer, Japanese forces had endured American firepower for 3 years. General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, commanding around 21,000 defenders, meticulously studied past battles and adapted numerous counter-strategies. His defense-in-depth approach, featuring interconnected tunnels stretching over 11 miles underground, epitomized the pinnacle of Japanese cave warfare tactics. Nonetheless, the BAR had also evolved. Marines now employed specialized bar tactics honed through harsh combat experiences. Bar gunners were placed at the forefront to lead advances, suppressing enemy positions while riflemen maneuvered around them. The weapon that was primarily defensive in World War I became offensive in the Pacific theater. Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, a hero of Odokanal who returned for more combat, met his end on Iwima's first day when struck by mortar fires as he led his machine gun sections forward. Despite surviving some of the fiercest battles of the Pacific War, Basilone was killed early in the invasion. Of the initial garrison of about 21,000 Japanese soldiers, only approximately 183 were captured at Iwima. The rest perished in their positions or were sealed inside caves by bar fire. During the 36-day campaign, Marines fired an estimated 12 million rounds of small arms ammunition. The 28th Marine Regiment alone, assaulting Mount Surabaki, consumed roughly 90,000 rounds of BAR ammunition over 5 days. April 1945, Okinawa. This battle underscored the overwhelming superiority of American automatic weapons. The Japanese 32nd Army, consisting of around 130,000 troops, many of whom were conscripted locals, had fortified their defenses with every tactical lesson and adaptation they could muster. However, they confronted not just Marines armed with BARs but also an American military that had mastered the mass production and distribution of automatic firepower. By Okinawa's time, the U.S. military had manufactured over 300,000 bar-ars. Some units even deviated from official organization by equipping one bar for every 2 or 3 soldiers. The 96th Infantry Division reported carrying far more than their authorized number of bars, recognizing that survival hinged on firepower, which in turn relied on the BRS, a Browning automatic rifler. Colonel Hiromi Yahara, a senior staff officer and survivor of the Japanese 37th Army, detailed post-war accounts highlighting American material superiority. While his writings do not explicitly mention the bar, his descriptions of the fall of the Shuri line indicate that it succumbed to methodical application of firepower rather than brute force assaults. Each cave and position was systematically cleared by automatic weapons fire. The Japanese were prepared for a spiritual battle but instead faced industrial warfare. The story of the bar was intricately linked with American industrial might. As Japanese soldiers perished in caves, U.S. factories achieved production feats that would have seemed unimaginable to their Japanese counterparts. For instance, IBM's Poughkeepsie, New York facility, which previously manufactured typewriters and calculators, was retooled for bar production in 1941. By 1944, IBM had produced 20,000 bars, each one meeting stricter quality standards than hand-fitted Japanese weapons. The New England Small Arms Corporation led bar production with 168 380 units, showcasing the massive scale of American industrial mobilization. Meanwhile, Marlin Rockwell Corporation, which had little prior experience in weapon manufacturing before 1941, constructed new facilities for this purpose. Additionally, Carl Gustav's Status factory in Sweden licensed bar production and reportedly offered to sell them to Japan via neutral channels in 1943. However, despite the Japanese military attaché in Stockholm investigating this possibility, Japan lacked the foreign currency and shipping capacity necessary to make such purchases viable. These production numbers, around 350,000 BRs in total, highlight the stark contrast with Japan's output of 41 Type 96 and 53,000 Type 99 light machine guns. The United States produced nearly 4 times as many BRs as Japan did for all types of light machine guns combined. The effectiveness of these weapons relied heavily on the supply of ammunition, an area where American industrial capabilities were unparalleled compared to Japanese planning. Each bar gunner in combat typically carried between 12 and 15 magazines, equating to 240 to 300 rounds. Additional ammunition was distributed among the squad members. A Marine rifle squad could carry up to 2,000 rounds of bar ammunition in addition to their rifle rounds. During World War II, American ammunition plants produced billions of rounds of small arms ammunition. Although the specific figure of 21 billion, 36 rounds cannot be independently verified, it is estimated that the US produced approximately 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition during the war. This substantial production ensured that American forces never faced a shortage of ammunition, even when their expenditure rates seemed excessive to resource-constrained Japanese forces. At Okinawa, the U.S. 10th Army fired an estimated 60 million rounds of small arms ammunition over 82 days. The 24th Corps alone documented firing 25 million rounds of rifle and machine gun ammunition. In contrast, Japanese defenders often had only about 100 rounds per man for the entire battle, whereas the enemy could expend that amount in mere seconds. Behind these statistics were human beings on both sides who became casualties of industrial warfare through the use of automatic weapons. According to post-war Japanese government records, Japan's military deaths during World War II totaled approximately 2.3 million. Academic research by Japanese historians indicates that about 60% or roughly 1.4 million died from starvation and disease rather than combat. The remaining combat casualties came from various causes including artillery, aerial bombardment, naval gunfire, and small arms fire. While it is difficult to determine the exact number of deaths caused specifically by bars, their contribution to American firepower superiority was undeniable. In the Pacific theater, American forces often inflicted casualties at ratios exceeding 10:1, primarily due to superior firepower rather than numerical advantage. By mid-1944, Marines had developed standard operating procedures for cave clearance that maximized the effectiveness of bars. These tactical manuals were based on experiences from battles like Tarawa and Saipan and specified systematic approaches. Position the bow gunner at an oblique angle relative to the cave entrance. Maintain a 25-yard distance from the target area. Fire the entire magazine in a controlled pattern. Utilize white phosphorus grenades to mark cleared caves and provide continuous suppressing fire during infantry advances. This tactic, employed countless times throughout the Pacific Theater, transformed the task of clearing caves from desperate close-quarters combat into a methodical procedure. The Japanese had designed their cave defenses with killing zones for attacking forces in mind. However, these strategies backfired when ricocheting BAR rounds turned enclosed spaces into death traps. The difference between American and Japanese automatic weapons was not merely numerical but also qualitative. The BAR exemplified decades of industrial advancement, mass production expertise, and mechanical precision that Japan could not match. In comparison, the Type 96 and Type 99 Japanese light machine guns, which were their closest equivalents to the BAR, required two-man crews, weighed more when equipped with bipods, and suffered from manufacturing inconsistencies. The limited scale of Japanese manufacturing in small workshops made it challenging to achieve the necessary tolerances for reliable automatic weapons. Springs failed, extractors broke, and feed mechanisms jammed due to inferior materials. Even the metallurgy told a stark story. BAR barrels were crafted from chrome molybdenum steel, enabling sustained fire without warping, while Japanese weapons relied on lower-grade steels that needed careful heat treatment by skilled craftsmen, something unattainable in mass production. American techniques produced superior firearms at a faster rate than Japan could manufacture inferior ones using craft methods. The BR revolutionized marksmanship, transforming it from an individual skill into a systematic application of firepower. Japanese soldiers trained to shoot with precision and careful aim found that American automatic riflemen did not aim in the traditional sense. Instead, they walked fire onto targets by adjusting based on observed impacts. This technique, impossible with bolt-action rifles, rendered concealment and camouflage cornerstones of Japanese infantry tactics. Less effective, a BAR gunner could decimate an entire hillside with a single magazine, compelling concealed Japanese fighters to either expose themselves or perish in place. The notion of denying enemy access through overwhelming firepower rather than precise marksmanship marked a pivotal shift in infantry tactics that the Japanese were unable to effectively counter. The efficacy of the BAR relied entirely on American logistical superiority. Each combat deployment required a supply chain extending from U.S. factories via freight trains and cargo ships all the way to forward supply dumps. This intricate logistics system was beyond the comprehension of Japanese military strategists. A single Marine regiment in active duty would consume around 40,000 rounds of small arms ammunition per week. Ensuring this demand required specialized supply vessels, shore-based personnel, ammunition carriers, and forward storage facilities. The Japanese anticipated that American forces would deplete their supplies after initial attacks, but instead observed an increase in American firepower over time. At Ulithi Atoll, a base built from scratch in 1944 U.S., logistics troops handled immense quantities of ammunition daily. Transport ships continuously shuttled supplies from West Coast ammunition plants to Pacific supply hubs. The infrastructure necessary for this operation, ports, vessels, handling equipment, storage facilities, represented an investment surpassing Japan's entire military budget. The BAR gun not only showcased technological superiority, but also symbolized a distinct approach to warfare. Japanese military ethos, deeply rooted in samurai tradition, emphasized individual combat, personal honor, and spiritual prowess. In contrast, American military culture, grounded in industrial democracy, prized firepower, efficiency, and mechanical advantage. This cultural divergence extended even to the treatment of weapons themselves. Japanese soldiers regarded their rifles as sacred objects, extensions of the emperor's will, meticulously maintained with religious dedication. American Marines viewed BRS's, a Browning recoil system, guns as utilitarian tools, reliable yet disposable if necessary. When BRS malfunctioned, Marines would simply replace them from supply. Conversely, when Japanese weapons broke down, soldiers frequently perished while attempting repairs under enemy fire. American bar training mirrored industrial approaches to military instruction. At Camp Pendleton and Fort Benning, Marines and soldiers were taught BR tactics through rigorous drills, standardized protocols, and assembly line methods. Each Marine fired more ammunition during training than a Japanese soldier would typically use throughout their entire service career. The standard BR training course mandated that each Marine fire at least 2,000 rounds across various exercises. They honed skills such as instinctive shooting, walking fire, talking guns, alternating fire between two bars, and rapid magazine changes. By the time they graduated, a Marine could change magazines in under 3 seconds, clear jams efficiently, and maintain accurate fire while moving. This extensive training, involving thousands of rounds per Marine and hundreds of hours of instruction, was feasible only due to America's industrial capabilities. Japan, perpetually short on ammunition even for combat situations, lacked the resources to offer such comprehensive training. Japanese soldiers often entered battle having fired fewer than 100 rounds during their entire service. The final battles of the Pacific War, including Iwo Jima and Okinawa, highlighted the overwhelming superiority of American automatic weapons. Despite enjoying geographical advantages and thorough preparations, Japanese defenders were confronted with a stark reality. They were facing industrial production with human endurance alone. During the Battle of Iwo Jima, Marines fired an estimated 12 million rounds over 36 days. On Okinawa, this number escalated to 60 million rounds in 82 days, with one VTI fighter corps alone documenting 25 million rounds used. The vast majority of these rounds were expended through automatic weapons. With food and water already scarce, Japanese defenders spent their last days under relentless automatic weapon fire, unable to move or counterattack, or waiting inevitable death. The statistics from these concluding battles underscored the truth about modern industrial warfare. Each Japanese defender faced hundreds of bullets, equivalent to an entire rifle company's output in traditional combat scenarios. This was made possible by the logistical might of industry and the effectiveness of automatic weapons. While the atomic bombs that ultimately ended the war have overshadowed the conventional firepower revolution preceding them, the demonstrated superiority of weapons like the bar had already foreshadowed Japan's inevitable defeat. Approximately 200,000 people in Japan lost their lives due to the atomic bombs, but conventional weaponry such as automatic rifles had already resulted in significantly higher casualties during the Pacific Campaign. Admiral Suimu Toyota, Chief of Staff for the Navy, acknowledged at the last Imperial conferences that America's conventional weapons advantage alone was enough to ensure Japan's defeat. The use of atomic bombs expedited Japan's surrender, yet they did not alter the underlying dynamics. Japan simply couldn't match the United States' output of weaponry and ammunition. Post-war Japanese military officers who studied in America uncovered the scale of American production capabilities. Official records indicated that around 350,000 Browning automatic rifles, SBARs, were manufactured during the war, nearly 4 times more than Japan's total production of all light machine gun types. Each bar cost $30.75 to produce in 1944, while Japanese Type 96 machine guns required significantly higher material and labor costs yet offered inferior performance. Japanese industrial delegations visiting American factories in the 1950s observed the assembly line techniques and standardized parts that explained their defeat. Quality control procedures were also part of what enabled the mass production of superior weapons by the United States. While Japan struggled to produce inferior alternatives through handcrafting methods, military historians have concluded that the BAR, along with other automatic firearms, highlighted the ineffectiveness of Japanese resistance tactics. The weapon demonstrated that in modern warfare, industrial capacity is more critical than warrior spirit. It determines a nation's military capability and cannot be overcome by courage alone. Dr. Edward Dreher, an expert on the Pacific War, pointed out that American automatic weapons fundamentally altered infantry combat dynamics in the Pacific theater. The Japanese failed to develop effective countermeasures because their problem was not tactical but industrial. They faced an adversary capable of equipping every squad with automatic weapons and providing unlimited ammunition while rapidly replacing losses. Statistics support this assessment. During the entire Pacific War, Japanese forces killed roughly 111,000 Americans in total casualties, whereas they lost approximately 2.3 million themselves, yielding a ratio surpassing 20-1. Although various factors contributed to this disparity, American automatic weapons superiority played a pivotal role. The impact of the Battle extended beyond military defeat, transforming Japanese society fundamentally. The bomb that dismantled Japanese militarism also showcased the might of industrial democracy. Post-war Japan adopted the core principles embodied by the BA. This included industrial efficiency, technological innovation, and excellence in mass production. Companies like Honda, Toyota, and Sony were established after the war by veterans who had witnessed American industrial prowess firsthand. These entrepreneurs recognized that national strength was derived from industrial capacity rather than military conquest. The economic boom in Japan partly stemmed from lessons learned from observing America's industrial superiority during wartime. In the 1950s, when the newly formed Japanese Self-Defense Forces received military aid from the United States, they were supplied with American weaponry, including BRS units. Approximately 10,000 of these weapons were provided through various assistance programs. As a result, Japanese soldiers trained using the very tools that had defeated their predecessors. This marked an ironic conclusion to Japan's transformation from militarism to alliance with industrial democracy. Over subsequent decades, American and Japanese veterans gathered at Pacific battle sites for reconciliation events. At these meetings, former adversaries exchanged candid accounts of their wartime experiences. Gunners from U.S., Marine Corps and infantry soldiers from Japan discussed the weapon that had profoundly shaped their combat encounters. These exchanges revealed a mutual understanding. Both sides had been ensnared by forces beyond their control. The American Marines armed with BRS served as representatives of industrial democracy, while Japanese troops were agents of military feudalism. The clash between these systems resulted in immense tragedy but also significant change. In 1995, on the island of Iwo Jima, veterans from both nations commemorated the 50th anniversary of the battle by laying wreaths together at memorials. They acknowledged that while the weapons had taken many lives, they ultimately brought an end to a war and transformed a nation. The BR served as both a destructive force and a liberator from militaristic tendencies. Its ultimate impact on the Pacific War underscores the extent of industrial warfare. Production figures indicate that approximately 350,000 bars were manufactured, roughly 41,000 Japanese Type 96 MMGs and about 53,000 Japanese Type 99 MMGs, resulting in an American advantage with a 3.731 ratio. Combat statistics reveal that Tarawa saw 3 million rounds fired over 76 hours. Saipan had 15 million rounds expended within 3 weeks. Iwima utilized 12 million rounds across 36 days, and Okinawa witnessed 60 million rounds discharged during 82 days of fighting. Throughout the Pacific theater, casualty ratios were approximately 20-1 in favor of American deaths compared to Japanese fatalities, with a total of 2.3 million military casualties for Japan, including around 1.4 million deaths due to starvation and disease, accounting for roughly 60%. Combat losses from all causes amounted to about 900,000. These figures highlight an overwhelming industrial disparity that no valor could surmount. America maintained superiority even if it lost 10 bars for every Japanese automatic weapon. They were capable of firing hundreds of bullets for each one possessed by Japan and equipping squads with firepower that outmatched company-level capabilities in Japan. The introduction of the bar prompted significant shifts in military strategy, extending far beyond the confines of the Pacific War. This weapon demonstrated conclusively that portable automatic fire distributed at the squad level was more effective than concentrated machine gun positions. The lessons gleaned from the defeat of Japanese forces would influence global military doctrines extensively. The Soviet Union's observation of America's success spurred them to accelerate the development of assault rifles such as the AK-47, which was designed shortly after World War II and aimed at equipping every soldier with automatic firepower. Meanwhile, China, analyzing Japan's military failures, reorganized its armed forces around automatic weapons. Even Japan's post-war self-defense forces adopted automatic firearms as a cornerstone of their infantry tactics. This shift marked the completion of a transformative era in warfare. The nature of combat had evolved from emphasizing individual marksmanship and warrior prowess to focusing on industrial firepower and production capacity, with mechanical advantages overtaking spiritual ones. The Browning automatic rifle, MBR, served as an emblematic instrument that taught this lesson through the bloodshed experienced by Japanese soldiers who found that courage alone was insufficient against American industrial might. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, executed for war crimes in 1946 after commanding both remarkable victories and devastating defeats during World War II, reflected on Japan's ultimate defeat. His insights span from the victory at Singapore to the catastrophic loss in the Philippines. Before his execution, he acknowledged that Japan had fundamentally misinterpreted the essence of modern warfare. Similar realizations dawned upon other surviving Japanese commanders who recognized like the bar not only represented superior firepower, but also symbolized a system, an industry's capability to mass produce high quality and main innovative war tools while attaining logistical efficiency, industrial efficiency. Japan's reliance on warrior traditions in an industrial conflict proved ineffective. Captain Mitsuo Fuchida, leader of the Pearl Harbor attack, who later became a Christian evangelist, reflected deeply on American military might. He understood that weapons like the BR demonstrated American strength, not through individual heroism, but through systematic application of industrial capacity to warfare. Each bar was a product of American factories, logistics systems, and training programs, reflecting an entire society's mobilization for industrial warfare. Today, in military museums across Japan, American weaponry from World War II, including the BR, is displayed as historical artifacts recognizing its pivotal role during the Pacific War. Younger generations of Japanese visitors delve into these weapons to comprehend how their nation's militaristic past was ultimately overcome by industrial democracy. The message is unequivocal: contemporary national strength stems from industrial capacity rather than warrior ethos, production capabilities, instead of readiness to sacrifice life, and systematic organization over individual bravery. During combat, American automatic weapons taught Japanese soldiers harsh lessons, with the cost of this education being paid in bloodshed. Japan's metamorphosis from a militaristic empire into an economic powerhouse was partly due to insights gleaned from confronting these powerful US firearms. Beyond merely killing Japanese troops, these weapons dismantled the notion of Japanese militarism by proving conclusively that industrial might outweighs spiritual resolve in modern warfare. Lieutenant General Mitsuru Yushima led the Japanese 32nd Army on Okinawa during the final major battle of World War II's Pacific Theater. On June 22, 1945, recognizing imminent defeat, he and his chief of staff committed ritual suicide. In his last orders to his troops, Yushima acknowledged the futility of further resistance against American material superiority. His death marked the end of organized Japanese opposition in the Pacific War. The American forces that defeated him held overwhelming advantages across all domains: artillery, air support, naval gunfire, and notably automatic weapons such as the BR. Though just one part of a broader superiority, the BR embodied the entire industrial edge that made American victory inevitable. Bullet Scarred cave entrances on Pacific islands serve as silent monuments to this clash between two military doctrines. These scars tell the tale of how America's automatic rifles not only secured victories, but also underscored the fundamental shift in warfare from individual combat to an industrial enterprise. The echoes of Boer fire across Pacific battlefields were more than sounds of triumph. They heralded the dominance of the industrial age over all previous forms of warfare. Japanese soldiers who perished in caves, struck by rounds unseen and unheard, bore witness to the ruthless efficacy of modern industrial democracy. The legacy of the Boer in the Pacific was not merely a testament to victory, but also a revelation about what constitutes national power in an era dominated by industry. Each burst of gunfire from the Browning automatic rifle served as a harsh reality check to Japanese soldiers who ultimately paid with their lives for this brutal education. In the end, it was the sheer power of the Boer that made clear what no diplomatic efforts could achieve. Military aggression against industrial democracies was both unwise and futile. This grim lesson, learned through bloodshed across Pacific islands from Guadalcanal to Okinawa, paved the way for Japan's transformation into a pacifist nation, which would later become one of America's most reliable Asian allies. The shift began when the first Marine Boer operator pulled the trigger, initiating a series of events that demonstrated the harsh realities of modern warfare. The tale of the Boer in the Pacific is fundamentally about how industrial might triumphs over traditional warrior culture. It illustrates how mass production can overpower individual bravery and how success in modern combat favors not just valiant soldiers but also efficient manufacturing capabilities. This lesson was etched into the thousands of cave entrances across the Pacific, each marked by the scars left by Boer rounds ricocheting through the darkness, ending the lives of soldiers who once believed that sheer spirit could conquer steel. This conviction perished alongside those soldiers, and from their demise emerged a new Japan, one that recognized genuine national strength stems not from military conquest but from economic advancement. Not from ancient warrior traditions, but from technological innovation, and not from an eagerness to die, but from the capacity for productive output. The BR had conveyed this message in the only language war comprehends: overwhelming, irrefutable, and lethal force.